hope we learn something. I hope we learn something. I hope we learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest day, from the darkest nights, from the sunny day.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the Daily All Hat No Kettle News Rodeo. I'm your host, Chat. Welcome, chat, D-Live, Trovo, YouTube. Nice to see all of you. I apologize for the late start. I had to make some changes in OBS today, and it looks like I did something wrong, so it took me a while to reapply. I think another problem is D-Live has a longer delay in hooking up than YouTube and Trovo, and I was getting tricked by that. I have switched my main streaming now to D-Live, and I'm using the plugin to stream Trovo and YouTube. But why should you care about any of that? As long as it's on live, what else does it matter, right? I went into a tangent. I apologize. Folks, the camera is dark because I've got a migraine. It's pretty low level right now, but if I turn the lights up, it's going to come blasting. So forgive the shadows. I hope you don't mind. Although I do have to admit, I think it looks kind of good because you can't see all the junk behind me like you usually do. So give me some thoughts on that. Tell me if you think going dark is actually a plus. I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, so it's a Friday, which means we're going to try to end on a humorous note. I will say last week's clip from the Babylon Bee podcast went over like a lead balloon. I did not like it. I don't think many of you did either. So that is out the window. No more of that. I'm going to try something new today. Hopefully you won't mind. I'm going to tag on one of the better Freedom Tunes cartoons from recent weeks and see if you like it. I'm going to see if I can't make that a regular feature. Freedom Tunes are always awesome, and I really don't know why I wasn't doing that from the start. But I must say, finally, and over, R.I.P. Florida Man Friday. It's gone. It's gone. It's never coming back, I guess. So strike that from your memories. But let us get on with it. I have some stuff, new data coming out, a new report about what may have actually triggered the baseball move from MLB, I should say, move of the All-Star game out of Georgia and into Colorado. There may be some actors behind the scenes that we hadn't previously known about. There's a Fox News story on that. And then in the after show, we will be talking again about guns and again about the border. Two very, very big stories right now, including a video from the past that you may remember. A video of then candidate Joseph Robinette Biden II telling a steelworker that he's not going to come for your guns. And then proceeding to lie about freedom of speech, getting AR-15 confused with an AR-14, of which I believe there is one in existence. It was the prototype for what became the Armalite model AR-15. AR stands for Armalite, by the way, not assault rifle. Stupid Democrats. And let's see, there was one other thing. Oh, yeah. He asks, do you need 100 rounds? As if everybody walking around with an AR-15 carries a 100-round two-drum magazine on it. The man is a complete and utter moron, but he's supposedly our president now. So honk honk. But we'll get into that later. First off, our Babylon Bee bookend on Fridays. We just have the one on the left. This is from their politics section. Constitution comes forward to accuse Biden of assault. And here we have a picture of 46 asterisk caressing and smelling the Constitution. Dateline, Washington, D.C. The Constitution has come forward to accuse Joe Biden of brutal assault, alleging that the president has maintained an abusive relationship with the document for decades. I can no longer remain silent, the document said after Biden tried to cancel the Second Amendment yesterday. It took me some time to come to terms with what was happening to me. In public, President Biden pretends to have a healthy relationship with me, but behind the scenes, he was dismantling me piece by piece. But after what happened yesterday, the mask finally came off, and I realized I had to come forward. With tears in its eyes, the Constitution said, by the way, tears in its eyes is spelled the letter I, apostrophe S, beautiful job by Babylon Bee. With tears in its eyes, the Constitution said it is just happy that it can finally tell its story. Me too, it said. Me too. This isn't the first instance of allegations made by our nation's founding document, as it has claimed varying degrees of abuse at the hands of 45 other presidents and thousands of congresspeople, senators, and Supreme Court justices. Babylon Bee, everyone. Nailing it as always. All right, my personal conceit, the market. Folks, the market showed a very strong buy binge at the end of the day. Unlike most Fridays where there's a sell-off at the end, it charged well into record territory, closing at almost exactly 33,800 for an almost 1% climb today. The other major indices, S&P 500 and NASDAQ, both closed at fractions. Also, the NASDAQ now flirting with the 14,000 mark, and the S&P 500 closing at 4,128 and change. Crude oil slipped a bit. It's still under $60 a barrel, currently at $59.32 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate sweet crude. And Bitcoin is seeing a bit of a rally. It's currently at 58,542 and change per coin. That's 1.5% increase over earlier trading. All right, sad news. I'm sure you all know by now, but it is incumbent upon me to pass this on to you that Queen Elizabeth's dear husband, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, is dead. He was 99, actually 2 months and a day short, as I understand it, of his 100th birthday. They have been married since 1946, I believe, and he was very, very big on the environment before it was even cool. And Prince Philip also had a number of charities and foundations for children. He was very much beloved in the country, and we mourn his passing. He led a great life and was a very exemplary person. So good for him. He is survived by, of course, Queen Elizabeth and their 4 children and many grandchildren. All right, let's get into the censorship part of the program. I tried to bring you the latest in censorship from big tech. I hate to do it. I wish it wasn't a thing, but it is. And I've got 2 pieces today, one from Twitter and one from YouTube. Sorry, YouTube, I'm coming after you today, and I'm coming after you big time. Demonetize me again. Go for it. See what happens. Anyway, Twitter has refused to host the archive of President Trump's banned tweets. Now, we all know that Twitter kicked President Trump off the platform after the January 6th riot. Facebook did the same, although Facebook's independent review board is still considering whether or not the Facebook ban is proper. I don't know why it's taking this long. He's not president anymore, you idiots. What can he do? Silly, silly big tech. But Twitter is basically screwing over the National Archives by not hosting these tweets. And here's Twitter's statement. Given that we permanently suspended Real Donald Trump, the content from the account will not appear on Twitter as it did previously or as archived administration accounts do currently, regardless of how National Archives decides to display the data it has preserved. Administration accounts that are archived on the service are accounts that were not in violation of the Twitter rules. I have no words. I have no words to describe how angry this makes me that a company, a private company that gets money from the government that would not be in business right now if it weren't for the government backing it. If it weren't for Section 230. thinks it has the right to ban speech from anyone, much less the President of the United States. That is enraging, absolutely enraging. I still have a couple Twitter accounts. I don't use them except to display Twitter tweets, I should say, during the show. That's the one time I use my account. I've been shadow banned on Twitter since mid-2016. I know that. I was posting articles refuting white terror against the black communities. Because I remember that was this big thing back in 2016. Trump was running for president, so everybody was a racist. Everybody was a white supremacist. By the way, when did it change from white supremacist to white supremacist? That kind of happened without anyone telling me. But, and so everything that happened that was white on black crime was immediately amplified to the nth degree. And so all I did was consistently post news stories with no commentary from local Chicago and Milwaukee affiliates describing black on black crime, including home invasions, murders, etc. And I was busy. I had a lot to share. And within no time, I stopped getting any interactions whatsoever. None. So it's obvious that Twitter was shadow banning me and only allowing me to think that my tweets were going out. And again, that was in mid-2016. So it's been almost 5 years. And that was before people talked about shadow banning. In any great detail, anyway. All right, moving right along. So as I said, it wasn't just Twitter pulling out the ban hammer. YouTube. YouTube saw fit to delete a video of Governor DeSantis, Dr. Scott Atlas. You'll remember Dr. Atlas being with the White House near the end of the administration. Also, a number of notable health experts about whom we'll talk about in a moment. But YouTube decided that this roundtable that basically discussed the idiocy of lockdowns, and especially how they related to the success that Florida had in dealing with the Wuhan virus pandemic. YouTube decided that that was against its guidelines on COVID misinformation, and so they yanked it a couple days ago. Can't find it. It's gone. So it wasn't just Governor DeSantis and Dr. Scott Atlas. It was also the three co-authors of the Great Barrington Declaration. And you may remember the Barrington Declaration was a letter demanding that countries stop locking down their populations because lockdowns don't work. And if YouTube's going to yank me for saying that, then fine, because it's true. Lockdowns don't work. Unless you physically prevent anyone from leaving their home for a period of several weeks, it's impossible to contain a contagious pandemic. Period. And if YouTube has a problem with that, then so be it. You should be watching on DLive anyway. DLive.tv/AHNC, or go to your app store, whichever you prefer, and download the DLive app. It works great. They don't spam you. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of work. Join us on DLive. It's the best chat on the internet, in my opinion. So this video is from March 18th. And here's a description from the American Institute for Economic Research. The efforts in Florida to protect the elderly while permitting the rest of society to function normally led to a success that has been celebrated the world over. It causes a major disruption to the lockdown narrative that the only way to suppress a virus is to suppress rights and freedoms. Does that sound pretty reasonable to y'all? I know Laura specifically, with many others of you, have been hailing this from the rooftops since March of last year. I mean, you guys were in the forefront on this. Or is it at the forefront? At the forefront. And I admit, I bought into the lockdown. I thought it was going to work. And obviously, it didn't. Didn't need to happen. States are still locked down. The, the Tin Horn Saloon, I believe it's called, in California, in Berkeley, I believe it is. SWAT came, kicked everybody out, and boarded the place up. They actually boarded the place up. That's your government in California, folks, and in New York, and in Michigan, and a host of other states, New Jersey, Connecticut. And their infection rates are through the roof. So who else was on this March 18th video? As I said, Governor DeSantis, Scott Atlas, Scott Atlas, who is a medical scholar. He's a medical historian. But also, there was Harvard Professor of Medicine, Dr. Martin Kulldorff, Oxford Professor of Epidemiology, Dr. Sunetra Gupta, and Stanford Professor of Medicine and Epidemiologist, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. Or is it Bhattacharya? I always get it wrong. And on April 7th, YouTube just yanked the video. And YouTube has not responded to any requests from, say, the Epoch Times, from where I'm reading the article, written by Jack Phillips. And there's been no public comment on this whatsoever. There it is. All right, moving right along. So now let's get into the 46 asterisk administration, the things that they're trying to do to ruin this country. And as I've said early and often, point to me one thing that this administration has done for this country that's had a positive result. One thing. Because so far I haven't seen it. We had $1 trillion out there waiting to be spent for COVID packages, including PPE, small business loans, school funding, etc. $1 trillion sitting out there. And yet the Democrats pushed through another $2 trillion bill, of which 8% at the most went to actual COVID programs. The rest was basically bailouts for blue states who don't know how to run their budgets. Red states who know how to operate, who kept their businesses open, who saw increases in tax revenues, they paid for states like Illinois, New York, and California, who have massive debt because of their out-of-control public sector unions. And as I've said before, the only way you can get someone to stop behaving badly is to make them suffer serious consequences. When you were a kid, you screwed up, you were going to get one of many punishments. You may have been sent to your room right after dinner. You may have been spanked. I went through a lot of abuse, actually. I went through a lot of stuff. Not much physical, but a lot of emotional abuse. A lot. And there are other methods of punishment. But hopefully, if it was done properly, it taught you a lesson. Don't light a railroad flare in the house again. I did that. I did. I lit a railroad flare off the stove in the house while my parents were away. And I got pretty well beat up for it. But rightly so. That one I deserved. I definitely deserved. But that was a negative consequence in relation to a bad action. And when blue states totally blow out their spending, totally over project returns on investments to support their union pension plans, they should have to do something about it. Like Wisconsin did. Governor Scott Walker, one of the best governors Wisconsin ever had, unless you were a teacher. The teachers' unions' liability for their pensions were completely out of control here in Wisconsin. The teachers' unions had bent the state over and absolutely had their way with it. And Scott Walker looked at the budget and he said, this cannot stand. This state will go bankrupt and bankrupt quickly if we don't do something about it. And he said, folks, no more pension. You'll get, I don't remember exactly how he resolved what they had paid into it. That part, I wasn't living in Wisconsin at the time, so that part's a little lost on me. Actually, I was, now that I think about it. I just wasn't paying attention to politics. I have to read up on that. I really should. But he did resolve the situation, and Wisconsin's been in the black ever since. And that was something like, I don't know, in the maybe 2012 or 2015, somewhere in there. So that was a good action to a bad problem. But the blue states that got all this bailout money, I think New York got something like 30 or 40 billion, and they still have a huge deficit. That was just a partial payment on it. The blue states got more money in regards to that $2 trillion handout than the red states did. So the red states basically paid for blue states' malfeasance, which means, of course, that we all paid for the blue states' malfeasance. Because, again, the government doesn't generate money. The government takes money from us and then spends it however it sees fit. And I've got more on government spending, in, I believe, in the, is it here? I think it's actually in the after show. But we will talk about that. Actually, I think it's the next story. Anyway, back to the story at hand. One of the things that we were asked about, or asked of, I should say, candidate Biden, was his intentions on whether or not he would pack the Supreme Court. And the closest he would come to making any kind of statement on it was that he would put together a commission to study packing the court. Which, of course, means that he will. Democrats don't put together commissions unless they will come out with the exact result they want, and then they will follow it as if they have a mandate to do it, as if a commission speaks for the American people. So now he's creating a commission today to study packing the Supreme Court, although they call it expanding the Supreme Court. Great. We've pretty much already lost the Supreme Court as it is. They haven't done anything right, really, since last year. Maybe one or two cases, that's it. The rest of it's been complete garbage. But who's on this commission? Yeah, I don't think you'll be surprised to find out. The panel will be led by, there'll be 36 people on this commission, by the way, 36. And they're going to examine the history of the court, past changes to the process of nominating judges, and the potential consequences of altering the size of SCOTUS. And I'm reading an article from WTRF.com written by John Lynch. The panel will be led by Bob Bauer, who served as White House counsel for, wait for it, Obama. It will also be led by Christina Rodriguez, a Yale Law School professor who served as Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Office of Legal Counsel under Barack Obama. Biden told Norah O'Donnell, the great journalist from CBS, I laughed my ass off, quote, I will ask them to, over 180 days, come back to me with recommendations as to how to reform the court system because it's getting out of whack. It's getting out of whack. Our dear leader, folks, putting policy into an excellent distillation by saying the Supreme Court is getting out of whack. By the way, if you think this panel is only going to look at packing the Supreme Court and not the other federal courts, where the Trump administration had great success in bringing in real judges who know how to read the Constitution, then you're not thinking far enough ahead. They will pack every circuit court that they can and fill them with liberal judges and totally destroy the judicial system in this country. It's not looking good, you guys. It's not looking good. I had no idea this administration was going to be as completely radical as it has been. I suspected some things, but not this complete reversal of any constitutional norms. The Democrats screamed for 4 years that Trump was shredding the Constitution, yet not once did he violate it except for the bump stock ban. That was it. Everything else was by the book. He lost maybe 2 court cases, and one of them was the very first one about the travel ban, which the Democrats disingenuously called the Muslim ban. The original ban was not written properly. I believe it was too broad. And the Supreme Court said, you can do this, but not the way you've written it. And so Trump went back to the drawing board. They came up with the second plan, and it was approved, and it ran, and it ran, and it ran. Biden is already in court over, I think, a dozen things he's done. Just naming a few. XL Pipeline, stopping construction of that. They're taken into court on that. Stopping the border wall. Construction of the border wall. They're taken into court on that. Pausing deportations for 100 days. A federal court's already ruled that is suspended indefinitely and cannot be followed. But it didn't matter because Biden, axed 90% of ICE, their ability to take care of immigration law, deporting illegals. Not only people who have snuck across the border, but people who come in on valid visas and then don't leave when the visas run out. That's a good half of the illegal population, or at least it was as of last year. I'm sure with the happenings at the southern border, those numbers are ticking more and more towards illegal border crossers as opposed to visa overstays. And it's only getting worse. We'll talk about that in the after show. And obviously, almost everything he said yesterday in the Rose Garden regarding gun control, all of those are going to court. All of them. And remember, it's not just what he said yesterday as far as executive orders. He's planning big legislation to grab guns too. He said so. Remember yesterday he said, if God would give me one thing, it would be this, referring to passing a broad gun bill. Now, the nice thing is, gun law isn't considered a budget item. So the Democrats can't use reconciliation to ram it through like they will another 3 times this year, thanks to the idiot Senate parliamentarian. The only other thing standing between us and packing these courts is Senators Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, both Democrats. They have both said they would not vote to end the filibuster, which means these laws would require 60 votes or more to pass, which means 10 Republicans would have to cross the line and vote for these bills. But again, I would never count on a Democrat to keep their word. Not a Democrat in power. So we'll have to see. Looking at the chat real quickly, David Von Kettering here on DLive says Biden's handlers are trying to rouse a lot of disinterested people to feel affected so they can get a gun nut to snap. That's very well put. Very well put. I like that. That's a good point. That's a very good point. White Fox Liz, I'll have to take exception to your point that Biden's killing the stock market. Not right now. It closed at a record high today, 33,800. But it's not going to last. That's not going to last. But for now, it looks good. But in the long term, you are right. It is going to tank, and it's going to tank big time. So that's my opinion. I am not a stock analyst. I am not a financial advisor. I've invested in 2 things, non-stock related, this year. One of which is doing okay, and the other of which has not done well at all. So I am not the be-all and end-all of market advice or investment advice in general. at all. But just saying. So keep an eye on keep an eye on this, folks. I'll do what I can to keep you up to date on it. So another thing we were told with this administration is, excuse me just a second. There we go. I had a problem with my Trovo notification. I just got a message on that. But we were told that this was going to be the administration of unity. Of course, they also use the word equity a lot, but that's another story. But unity was the key word. It was repeated over and over again by 46 asterisk during his inaugural address. And there hasn't been one shred of unity yet. Not one inkling of unity. The $2 trillion COVID bill was rammed through both houses without one Republican vote. They're already gearing up to pass the quote-unquote infrastructure bill, of which, if you make the most generous allowances for things that are infrastructure, according to them, like broadband across the country and electric charging stations for electric cars, if you count those as being a infrastructure, then this $2.25 trillion infrastructure bill, only about 36 to 38% of it is actual infrastructure. The rest of it is giveaways to green energy and government construction projects. Hardly any of this money is going to private industry. This is all going to be government work, which means it's going to be done crappily, and it's going to be done so poorly that they're going to have to do it again. You remember, the government never has enough money to do something right the first time, but they always have enough money to do it over again when they screw it up. Perfect example. There's a traffic circle right over my left shoulder, about a block and a half, 2 blocks away. And it's great. It's a junction of 4 roads. And there were stop signs all over the place. It took forever to get through it. Now there's a traffic circle. And I love it. I love it. But the first time they built it, they didn't make it wide enough for snowplows. So the first decent snow that happened, it was closed because you couldn't get through it, because the snowplows got stuck trying to plow it. The radius was too small. So they had to completely tear it apart. Of course, we had to wait because they couldn't do it in the middle of winter. We couldn't use the thing all winter, except if there was a melt, which rarely happens up here. And then come spring, they tore it apart and redid it. And now it works. That is a government construction project in a nutshell. And that's what this infrastructure bill is going to be. Shovel-ready jobs all over again. Nothing more than pork barrel stuff. So regarding unity, let's look at one specific instance. And that would be the $2 trillion quote-unquote COVID relief bill. The American Rescue Act, I believe it was called. You may remember that a group of Republican senators went to the White House 2 days before the bill was introduced in the House. And the Republicans said, President Biden, Hong Kong, this is too much. We don't need all this money flooding into the economy. We can't afford to spend all this money. There's already $1 trillion sitting out there waiting to be spent. We only need to spend about, I believe it was $800 billion, and we'll have this done. $860 billion, and we'll have this done. And Biden nodded his head, saying, thank you for coming. And then the bill appeared on the House floor, and it was exactly what the Democrats had said it would be all along. They did not take one suggestion from the Republicans into account. Exactly 0 were considered in the bill. The Democrats rammed it through the House. The Republicans objected. Then it went to the Senate. They used reconciliation to ram it through the Senate without one Republican vote. All in the name of unity, you guys. All in the name of unity. And now they're fixing, as they would say in Texas, fixing to ram at least, another 3 spending bills through Congress this year because a Senate parliamentarian said that you can use the reconciliation process 4 times as opposed to what the rule really is, which is just once per budget year, per fiscal year. But now it's 4 times, so the Democrats are absolutely going to ruin this country in no time at all. They've only got till January of 2023. So the steamroller is coming. That's about all I need to say on this. Moving right along. So the All-Star Game. We were told that the reason the All-Star Game was moved from Georgia to Colorado, from a mostly black city to one of the whitest cities in America, outside of Vermont, we were told that it was done because the commissioner, the idiot commissioner, whose name I can never remember nor do I ever want to remember, said that he listened to the bitching of 50 black Major League Baseball players who said they were offended by Georgia's new election law, Bill 202, which, among other things, required voter ID for absentee ballots, or the last 4 digits of your social security number, or a current utility bill, or your driver's license number. But all those things are considered racist because minorities are too stupid or too lazy to be able to handle such things. That's what the Democrats are saying. It's the only reason they could say that these minorities can't do the things I just described, because they're either too stupid or too lazy. Even though a very strong majority of black voters and an even greater majority of Hispanic voters say that voter ID is a good thing. But that was what Major League Baseball told us, that they listened to the players. Well, it turns out that was a lie, according to this report. I've got this pulled up from FoxNews.com, written by Charlie Gasparino and Morgan Phillips. I believe Charlie's one of their sports writers. I've read from Charlie before. Excuse me. Liquid IV. I love this stuff. I'm drinking about two or three of these a day. Between the energy and the immune boost. And let me tell you something. I may interrupt myself. I've been drinking this for a couple weeks now, and I have noticed something very interesting. This is going to get a little detailed, folks, but you need to hear it. I have a spastic bladder, and I take medication for it. So when I have to go to the bathroom, it's right now. When I stand up, get out of the way. Get out of the way. Period. I started drinking this, and I noticed within a few days, and I had to stop because I ran out. I didn't order in time. And then I started again about a week later. I've noticed that when I drink this regularly, I don't have to run to the bathroom anymore. I don't. And I don't have to go to the bathroom as often, even though I'm drinking at least twice the water per day that I used to, if not 3 times. I used to be able to take a bottle of water, a 16-ounce bottle of water, and make it last a couple days. Now I drink at least 3 bottles a day. And also, at night, when I go to bed, I don't have to get up as often to go to the bathroom. And when I do, again, it's not incredibly urgent. It's normal. I'm not saying it'll do this to you at all. I'm not saying that. I cannot predict the future for any of you. But Liquid IV has been a real game changer for me. I heard about it through Dan Bongino on his show, and I like it. It also tastes great. It really tastes great. So that's my take on Liquid IV. Take it or leave it. And I'd like to welcome BBC News to the D-Live. Thank you for being here. So anyway, who got the commissioner to move the All-Star game? Actually, it was some quote-unquote black community leaders. And by that, I mean race hustlers. Headline from this article. MLB commissioner decided to move All-Star game after pressure from Stacy Abrams on voting issues. And this is according to sources in the MLB head office. Not only was it Stacy Abrams, it was also other quote-unquote voting rights groups associated with Reverend Al Sharpton and LeBron James, as well as Stacy Abrams. All major race hustlers. They don't give a damn about the black community. They only give a damn about their image. Al Sharpton has been nothing but ripping off his community for decades. If just look up Al Sharpton money trouble, and you will see article after article about all the shady crap he's pulled over the years using other people's money. LeBron James, the highest paid athlete basically in history, complains that he can't walk down the street without fear of getting shot by a cop. And Stacy Abrams, well, what can I say about Stacy Abrams? She lost the race for Georgia governor by over 50,000 votes, and she has been screaming voter suppression the entire time, even though that election saw a record number of minority voters. A record number. Georgia has been setting voting records every election cycle since 2010, when they first instituted basic voter ID laws. These people don't give a damn about the black community. They only care about making money and cementing power for the Democrats. If they gave a damn about the black community, they'd stop being Democrats and actually do something, as opposed to running these poor communities into the ground decade after decade, and then every election cycle saying, well, it's the white man that did this to you. It's the white man that's keeping you down, even though the majority of these communities live in Democrat cities run by Democrat mayors with Democrat city commissioners and even Democrat chiefs of police, who are most often black. Look at Baltimore. Baltimore has had an almost exclusively black ruling body for decades. Has Baltimore gotten any better, or has it gotten worse? Same with Chicago. Same with Atlanta. Although I shouldn't say Atlanta. Atlanta's actually doing pretty good. I'll back off on Atlanta. My bad. Although the crime rate's gone up. The crime rate's definitely gone up, thanks to Keisha Lance Bottoms, or the mayor. But it's happening all over the country in these Democrat cities. And they just keep, every 2 years, it's the white man, it's the white man, it's the white man. It's racism, it's racism, it's racism. We're the only hope you have because we look like you. We hear you, we feel your pain. They get elected in the office and things just get worse and worse and worse. The minority community is finally waking up to that. The Blexit movement started by Candace Owens, getting black voters out of the Democrat Party into the Republican Party, has been gaining steam quite heavily. Trump doubled his black vote between 2016 and 2020, doubled it. And he more than doubled his Hispanic vote. He also saw record increases in gay voting for Republicans. In fact, Trump had more women voters in 2020 than he did in 2016. The only demographic that Trump lost ground in 2020 was white males. All those white supremacist males voted for Biden. But that doesn't fit the Democrat narrative, so they'll never tell you that. Going back to the article, Stacey Abrams told a senior league official that she wanted him to denounce the Georgia voting rights law, according to people with direct knowledge of the matter. People associated with Sharpton's quote-unquote civil rights organization and James' voting rights group, it should read, quote, more than a vote, also pressured league officials, according to people with direct knowledge of the matter, After these conversations, Manfred, the MLB commissioner, believed the All-Star game would be turned into a political event and players would boycott the game, these people say. Baseball sources say that Abrams' current stance, that she is disappointed about the Georgia boycott, is suspect because she was among the most prominent political operatives to pressure the league to denounce the new law. James has publicly supported the Georgia boycott. One last thing. People close to Manfred believe Abrams' group and Sharpton also wanted the league to support other issues, including voter drives and H.R. 1, the quote-unquote For the People Act, sweeping election reform that recently passed the House. And again, for those of you who have been living under a rock, H.R. 1, the perfectly named For the People Act, you got to give the Democrats credit. They know optics. The Democrats are perfect at optics. They can't meme, but they sure can package. And the For the People Act would basically ruin voting forever across the nation. It would obviate voter ID anywhere. It would create universal mail-in balloting. It would not allow you to clean up voter rolls. It would not allow you to challenge people at the polls if you felt they were not voting, they were not legal to vote. Even though how would you prove it since you can't ask for ID? If you did challenge someone's right to vote, you could be taken to court, a court made up of Democrats. You could vote anywhere, whether or not it was your precinct. And let's see, I think there was one other thing. That's enough. That's enough. Let's not count on my memory for any more than that. That's For the People Act. It would completely destroy the constitutional rights of states to determine their own elections. And that is in the Constitution. I believe it's Article 2, Section 1, subsection A. But I'm sorry, no, I got that wrong. It's definitely Article 2. Article 2, Section 1, I think. But that's... So Stacy Abrams, Al Sharpton, and LeBron James, folks, they're the reason the All-Star Game got moved out of predominantly black city into one of the whitest cities in America and cost Cobb County and Fulton County around $100 million in revenue. And that's just for the All-Star Game. Remember, baseball also pulled the annual baseball draft out of Georgia this year. That's another how many tens of millions. They don't care, folks. They don't care. Now, there's some good news about voting. At least a little good news. Pennsylvania's agreed to at least remove the dead people from their voter rolls. But they had to be sued to do that. The lawsuit was, and this is an article from the Epoch Times by Jack Phillips. The lawsuit, again, demanding that dead citizens be removed from the Pennsylvania voter rolls. The lawsuit was filed by the Public Interest Legal Foundation in November of last year, and it alleged that some 21,000 registrants who had died were still on the state's voter rolls at the time of the election. Pennsylvania agreed to compare its voter registration database with the Social Security Death Index and then direct all county election commissions to remove the names of the dead registrants. Let me quote a release from the Watchdog Group. This is from their president and general counsel, J. Christian Adams. Great name, J. Christian Adams. I like that. Here's a quote. The Commonwealth's failure to remove deceased registrants created a vast opportunity for voter fraud and abuse. It is important to not have dead voters active on the rolls for 5, 10, or even 20 years. This settlement fixes that. It's a little victory, but it's a victory. Remember, the Obama administration stopped the DOJ from enforcing the federal statute that said that states had to keep their voter rolls clean. Another incident of a Democrat president not following their oath of office and upholding the Constitution and the laws of the United States. They don't give a damn. They will do whatever they please and then blame the Republicans for it. Let's touch on this real quickly. Another piece of state news. San Francisco. Remember the most beautiful city in America? It was right there it was at the top forever. And then Seattle started inching closer and closer. And Seattle is a beautiful city. I've been there. It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Too many damn hills, though. I'm old. I'm a cripple. Too many damn hills. San Francisco's the same way. But San Francisco has beautiful neighborhoods. The trolley, the famous San Francisco trolley. But San Francisco has become an absolute hellhole. The Democrats have started passing laws or not enforcing laws, such as not allowing homeless people to sleep on the sidewalk, not arresting people for doing drugs in the open, allowing people to use the bathroom wherever they damn well please. San Francisco actually created an app that allowed you to track where reported incidents of human feces were in the city so that you wouldn't have to worry about stepping on it. Unless, of course, it hadn't been reported yet. They actually pay people something like $65,000 a year to be on the crew that drives around the city and washes this waste into the gutter, thereby contaminating the water system. And of course, when you spray feces with high-pressure water, it atomizes the material, and it gets into the air, and you can breathe it in. Or it can land on your skin, and you can touch your eyes or your mouth with it. That's their solution. So you may not be surprised that people have been pouring out of San Francisco. Most of them are actually moving to Sacramento. Sacramento's not the greatest city in the world, but at least it's not San Francisco. Sacramento, you may know, is the capital of California. It's Northern California, too. But this article here, this is from the Business Insider, written by Alana Akhtar, Akhtar. I got it right the first time. A lot of these people are moving to Texas and hang on a second. Florida. That's it. The Texas and Florida. I had already forgotten what I was going to read. San Francisco lost the most residents between 2019 and 2020 out of every major city. And this is per a group that tracks movements via moving company activity. Moves from San Francisco to Texas increased by 32.1%. That's a year over year. 32.1% in 1 year, and to Florida by 46.2%. Again, an increase in 1 year, almost a 50% rise in moves from San Francisco to Florida, and an over 30% rise from San Francisco to Texas. Good for them, but I hope they move to Miami and one of the big cities in Texas, because those are already blue. If they go to the outer areas and screw up the Republican Democrat ratio, then these states are in trouble. People keep predicting Texas is going to turn blue. Hasn't happened yet, but they're trying. These illegals are pouring in by the thousands every day, and the Democrats want to make all of them citizens. That's their plan, has been the whole time. And Florida's been reliably red the last two election cycles, but it's a fairly small margin. It's more red than it used to be, but it's still a small margin. And without Florida and Texas, you're not becoming president. So, bad news for San Francisco. Let's see if it's good news for Texas and California and Sacramento. All right, getting to, let's see. I'm going to touch on this real quickly. I've run out of time for YouTube. Getting near the end here. Remember, I talked about just the other day, I believe it was yesterday, that this administration is talking about sending something like $256 million to the quote-unquote Palestinians, which I'm going to refer to from now on as the Gaza Arabs. And we talked about how the Palestinian Authority and Hamas and Hezbollah pay terrorists or families of dead terrorists for activities they've done against Israelis. If you maim an Israeli, you get a certain amount. In fact, if you're in jail in Israel, they're paying you. They're putting money in an account for you while you're in jail in an Israeli prison, if you're a terrorist. And if you get killed, then your family gets all kinds of bennies, including having their house paid off. If it wasn't for the money flowing in to the Palestinian Authority, Hezbollah, and Hamas, Gaza would collapse under its own weight. There's nothing holding. In a sense, there's not a lot of difference between the Palestinian Authority and Democrats running major U.S. cities. Their word is law, and they give you all kinds of quote-unquote free stuff. But without them, there's nothing you can do. So it turns out there is a law against giving the Gaza Arabs, especially the Palestinian Authority, money. There is a law against that. It was passed during the Trump administration. It's called the Taylor Force Act. The Taylor Force Act. And Ted Cruz is pointing out to the Department of State that sending any money to the Palestinian Authority would violate the Taylor Force Act. So they're calling them out on it. So here's another instance of this administration absolutely, blatantly breaking U.S. law. Catch and releases against the law. You're not supposed to allow someone into the country without a valid asylum claim. But we're doing it anyway, just like Obama did. I'm going to skip that. All right, real quickly on Russia. Russia is really, really ramping up the rhetoric. A senior Kremlin official, this is an article from Reuters, a senior Kremlin official said on Thursday Russia could, under certain circumstances, be forced to defend its citizens in eastern Ukraine, and that major military hostilities could mark the beginning of the end of Ukraine as a country. And that's according to TASS, one of the major mouthpieces for the Russian government. They are saying, full force, that if you provoke us, we will steamroll this country into oblivion. They've already amassed thousands of troops, armor, and support equipment on the Russian-Ukrainian border. They've been supplying the Ukrainian Crimean separatists with arms for years. And they're flat out threatening to completely destroy the Ukrainian free state and turn it back into a Russian vassal. Now, there is one response from this administration so far. One response. We're sending a couple warships into the Black Sea to deploy around Sevastopol, the Ukrainian seaport on the Black Sea. That used to be one of the major Soviet naval bases until Ukraine broke away. And then they claimed the ships as their own and wound up with a pretty decent Ukrainian navy. I don't know if they ever had the money to really maintain them, though. But we're sending 2 warships to the coast of Ukraine, but only until May 4th. So really not even a month. But I can't find out anywhere what type of ships we're sending. I don't know if they're going to be cruisers, destroyers, missile cruisers. I don't know. Certainly not battleships, because you can't fit a battleship through the Bosporus Strait, which is the strait between the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea, without incurring some serious danger. Because in that little stretch of a canal, if you will, you're prohibited from doing any kind of decent defensive maneuvers, and you could be attacked pretty quickly. So I don't know what's going to happen out of this, but that's what's going on right now. All right, bye YouTube. I will see you tomorrow. Pardon me. I just remembered. My memory, you guys. I'm not going to be here Monday. I should have told you this sooner, but I kept forgetting. I have a procedure Monday morning. I won't describe it. It's very routine, but I have to go under anesthesia. So I obviously will be out all day Monday, and I don't know how quickly I'll come out of it Tuesday. I'd say the chances are probably 65-35 that I'll be able to do the show Tuesday. But I can't guarantee it. I will do all I can to let you know as soon as possible on Tuesday whether or not there will be a show. I'll cut a trailer to let you know either yes or no. I won't leave you guessing. But I can't guarantee it. So that's going to happen. And then a week from Friday, or a week from today, pardon me, I have to go up to Wauwatosa for another procedure. And that's near Milwaukee. And that's going to take all morning. So I won't be able to do the show next Friday. I'm sorry. I wish that weren't the case. You guys know how I hate to miss Fridays. Friday is my favorite day of the week, bar none. But I won't be able to do it. So we'll have some time off next week. Hopefully Tuesday, I will be able to preview the latest arrival to the hat collection. It arrived yesterday. It is gorgeous. Stunningly gorgeous. I can't wait to show it to you. But I want to premiere it properly. Friday is, of course, the 46 Asterisk hat. It'll normally be my Monday hat, but hopefully on Tuesday I'll be able to show it to you. All right, YouTube, please consider going to the DLive on your browser. That is dlive.tv/AHNC. Let me put it on the screen. Also, the DLive app is available for both Android and iPhone. It is a very cool app. It works really well. I love it. And it's nice. DLive is a very upright outfit. It doesn't spam you. It doesn't drive you crazy. And it is not perfectly, but pretty first day friendly. I love it. It's very nice to me. And the chat loves it too. I know that for a fact. So I will see YouTube again, perhaps Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Look out for an early notice as to whether or not there will be a show Tuesday. I promise to do it. All right, YouTube. Bye-bye. Let's see. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.